Dr. Zixnara Quasar, lead xenobiologist aboard the galactic research vessel Curiosity's Folii, had seen some shit in her 7 solar cycles of intergalactic exploration. She'd witnessed the mating rituals of gaseous beings from the Crab Nebula talk about silent but deadly, catalogued the psychic spores of the hive mind of Betelgeuse, a real headache that won, and even survived tasting the so-called delicacies at the Pan-Galactic Food Festival. Note herself, avoid anything that glows and pulsates. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for the day she encountered a human eating lunch. It was supposed to be a routine observation mission. The crew of the Curiosity's Folly had been monitoring Earth for decacycles, watching these bipedal creatures stumble their way towards what they laughingly called civilization. Zixnara and her team had been tasked with studying human biology, a job that usually involved a lot of sitting around, making snarky comments about human mating habits, and occasionally prodding some poor abductee with a rectal probe. Hey, science demands sacrifices. On this particular day, Zixnara was hunched over her holoscreen, absently stirring her cup of nutrient sludge. Mar was 20 minerals, while reviewing the latest data on human digestive systems. Her assistant, a bright-eyed young Arcturian named Blorp, was bouncing around the lab like an over-caffeinated electron. Dr. Quasar, Dr. Quasar. Blorp's voice modulator squeaked with excitement. You've got to see this. Our stealth drone just captured something incredible. Zixnara sighed, her 3 eyes rolling in perfect synchronization. Blorp, if this is another video of humans engaging in what they call yoga, I swear by the great void, I will demote you to waste management. No, it's much better. Blorp's tentacles waved frantically as he brought up a live feed on the main holo projector. The image flickered to life, revealing a middle-aged human female sitting at what appeared to be an outdoor eating establishment. Zixnara leaned forward, her interest piqued despite herself. The human was unwrapping something, and the xenobiologist found herself holding her breath, all 4 of them in anticipation. And then it happened. The human took a bite of something, signs, and Zixnara's world turned upside down by the cosmic constants. She gasped, her tentacles curling in horror. Blorp, are you seeing this? What in the name of all that's unholy is that creature consuming? Blorp, looking equally horrified and fascinated, consulted his datapad. According to our records, Doctor, it appears to be something called a burrito. Zixnara tested the strange word, her translator struggling to make sense of it. What manner of foul concoction is this? As they watched, the human continued to devour the burrito with alarming gusto. Zixnara's scientific mind kicked into overdrive, analyzing every aspect of this bizarre ritual. Look at the structural integrity of that. That tongue, she muttered, gesturing at the screen with a trembling tentacle. It appears to be some sort of containment vessel made from a flattened plant-based material. And the contents, great void. Blorp, ever helpful, began listing off the ingredients their sensors were detecting. It seems to contain processed animal flesh, Doctor. And vegetables, some kind of grain. Oh, and there's a substance our system can't quite identify. It's registering as both a solid and tend liquid. Impossible, Zixnara scoffed, but the evidence was right before her 3 eyes. What kind of madman would combine so many disparate elements into a single consumable unit? As if in answer to her question, the human on screen took another massive bite, and a glob of the mysterious substance oozed out onto her face. Disgusting, Zixnara murmured, unable to look away. And yet, oddly fascinating. The human, oblivious to the fact that she was currently the subject of intense extraterrestrial scrutiny, continued to eat with reckless abandon. She paused only to take swigs from a container filled with a dark, bubbling liquid. Blorp, Zixnara said, her voice low and serious. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Blorp's eye stalks quivered. That humans are the most revolting species we've ever encountered, and we should recommend immediate quarantine of their entire planet. No, you overgrown amoeba. Zixnara snapped, smacking Blorp upside his gelatinous head with a free tentacle. This burrito, and whatever that caustic-looking beverage is, they must be some kind of biological weapon. Blorp blinked his 7 eyes in rapid succession. A weapon, Doctor? But the human appears to be consuming it voluntarily. And she seems to be enjoying it. Zixnara waved dismissively. Clearly, this is a demonstration of the species' incredible resistance to toxic substances. Think about it, Blorp. We've been studying humans for cycles, trying to understand how such a primitive species could survive on a planet so riddled with pollutants and hazards. And now we have our answer. She gestured dramatically at the screen, where the human was now licking her fingers clean of the mysterious oozing substance. They've weaponized their own metabolism. These burritos must be a way of building up immunity to a wide range of biological and chemical agents. Blorp looked skeptical, which was quite a feat for a being with no discernible facial features. But, Doctor, our previous research indicates that humans simply enjoy combining flavors in their sustenance. They call it cuisine. Zixnara rounded on her assistant, all 3 eyes narrowing dangerously. Oh, my sweet, naive little Blorp. Do you really think any species would voluntarily subject themselves to that? She jabbed a tentacle at the screen, where the human was now scraping the last bits of filling from the wrapper with her fingers. Unless they had a greater purpose in mind. She began pacing the lab, her mind racing faster than a quantum computer on hyperdrive. Don't you see? This changes everything. We've been so focused on their primitive technology, their laughable attempts at space exploration, their bizarre obsession with creating miniature versions of themselves. We completely missed the bigger picture. Blorp, caught up in his superior's enthusiasm, despite his reservations, bounced excitedly. So what do we do now, Doctor? Alert the Galactic Council? Recommend immediate first contact? Zixnara paused her frantic pacing, a sly grin spreading across her face, at least, the part of her anatomy that passed for a face. Oh no, my dear Blorp. We're going to do something much, much better. She slithered over to the main control panel, her tentacles flying across the holographic interface. We're going to study this burrito phenomenon in detail, and then we're going to replicate it. Blorp's gelatinous form quivered with a mixture of excitement and terror. Replicate it. But, Doctor, is that safe? Our physiologies are completely different from humans. Who knows what effect it could have on us? Zixnara's laugh echoed through the lab, a sound that would have sent shivers down a human's spine had there been any humans present to hear it. Safe? Safe? My dear Blorp, when has science ever been about playing it safe? We're on the brink of uncovering the secret to humanity's surprising resilience, and you're worried about a little indigestion. She turned back to the screen, where the human had now moved on to another strange concoction, this one appearing to be some sort of frozen dairy product topped with multicolored spheres. Besides, she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, just think of the possibilities if we can harness this power for ourselves. Blorp, realizing he was fighting a losing battle, sighed resignedly. I'll prepare the biocontainment unit and alert the medical team to stand by. Excellent. Zixnara rubbed her tentacles together gleefully. Oh, and Blorp, see if you can find out where they're keeping the recipe for that bubbling black liquid. I have a feeling we're going to need it. As Blorp scurried off to make the preparations, Zixnara turned back to the holoscreen, her eyes gleaming with the kind of manic enthusiasm that had led to some of the greatest and most disastrous debris in galactic history. All right, you clever little humans, she murmured, watching as the subject on the screen tackled yet another incomprehensible foodstuff. Let's see what other secrets you're hiding in that bizarre cuisine of yours. 3 solar days later, the lab aboard the Curiosity's foe looked like the aftermath of a particularly rowdy frat party. Not that Zixnara or Blorp had any idea what a frat party was, but the analogy stands. Every available surface was covered with the remnants of failed burrito experiments. Tortilla-like wrappings made from various alien plant fibers lay strewn about like deflated balloons, while pools of multicolored sauces formed abstract art on the floor. In the center of it all stood Zixnara, her usually immaculate lab coat, splattered with what might have been guacamole. Guacamole were fluorescent and slightly radioactive. Her 3 eyes were wild, unfocused, and she clutched a misshapen, oozing object in her tentacles like it was the Holy Grail. "We've done it, Blorp," she cackled, holding the monstrosity aloft. "Behold, the perfect replication of the human bioweapon." Blorp, looking decidedly worse for wear, peered out from behind an overturned table. His normally translucent body had taken on a sickly green hue, and occasional bursts of static disrupted his voice modulator. "Ah, Jebzeke. Are you sure about this, Doctor? The last batch made the entire xenobotany department break out in bioluminescent hives." Zixnara waved off his concerns with a sauce-covered tentacle. "Minor setbacks, my dear Blorp. You can't make an omelette without irradiating a few Garblovian slug hens, as they say." "Nobody," Jebsdon says that, Doctor. "Details, details." Zixnara's manic grin widened as she surveyed their creation. "Just look at it, Blorp. The structural integrity, the perfect balance of solid and liquid components, the way it oozes with potential. This is it, the key to humanity's surprising durability." Blorp reluctantly slithered out from his hiding spot, eyeing the burrito-like object with a mixture of fascination and abject terror. "But how can we be sure it's safe? Our previous tests have been... Well, let's just say the decontamination team is threatening to go on strike." Zixnara's eyes gleamed with a kind of madness usually reserved for mad scientists in B-movies. "There's only one way to find out, my faithful assistant. We must test it ourselves." Blorp's gelatinous form quivered in horror. "Ourselves? But, Doctor, surely we should run more simulations, or perhaps test it on some of the laboratory exonaths first." "Nonsense," Zixnara declared, already unwrapping the unholy creation. "Science demands sacrifice, Blorp. Now open wide." Before Blorp could protest further, Zixnara shoved a generous portion of the burrito into what passed for his mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, great cosmic constants. Blorp's voice modulator shrieked, emitting a series of pitches that would have shattered glass had there been any in the vicinity. His translucent body began to swirl with a kaleidoscope of colors, like a lava lamp having an existential crisis. Zixnara watched in fascination, furiously taking notes on her datapad. Extraordinary. The flavor profile must be overwhelming his sensory processors. "Quick, Blorp, describe the experience." Blorp's response was a garbled mess of binary code and what sounded suspiciously like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. His eye stalks began to rotate independently, giving him the appearance of a malfunctioning carnival ride. "Fascinating," Zixnara muttered, still scribbling notes. "The combination of flavors and textures seems to be inducing a state of heightened awareness, possibly even mild hallucinations." "Blorp, are you currently experiencing any visions of trans-dimensional beings or the secrets of the universe?" Blorp's only response was to begin levitating 3 feet off the ground, his body pulsating with an inner light that would have put most dance clubs to shame. Zixnara nodded sagely. "I'll take that as a yes." She turned her attention back to the burrito in her tentacles, eyeing it with a mixture of scientific curiosity and what could only be described as hunger. Well, in the name of thorough research, she took a massive bite. For a moment, the lab was silent save for the occasional beep of machinery and the sound of Blorp humming what might have been the theme song to Friends in perfect 4-part harmony with himself. Then Zixnara's eyes widened to the size of small moons. "By the void," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It's..." The next few minutes were a blur of sensation and revelation. Flavors Zixnara had never imagined possible exploded across her taste buds, all 17 of them. Textures danced a saucer on her tongue, and somewhere, in the midst of this culinary chaos, she could have sworn she heard the voice of the universe itself, whispering the secrets of creation which, coincidentally, sounded a lot like a recipe for the perfect chili. When she finally came back to her senses, Zixnara found herself floating next to Blorp, both of them gently bobbing near the ceiling like the world's strangest balloons. The remains of the burrito lay on the floor below, looking innocent and unassuming, as if it hadn't just rocked the foundations of their reality. "Blorp," Zyxnara said, her voice unusually calm. "I think we may have miscalculated." Blorp, who had finally stopped cycling through colours and settled on a pleasant mow, turned all 7 of his eyes toward her. "How so, Doctor?" This burrito," she gestured vaguely towards the floor. "It's not a weapon, a religious experience," Blorp offered. "A culinary masterpiece." Zyxnara countered. They looked at each other, then spoke in perfect unison. As the effects of their experimental meal slowly wore off, and they drifted back to the ground, Zyxnara's mind was already racing with new theories and possibilities. "Don't you see, Blorp? We've been looking at this all wrong. These humans, these brilliant, insane creatures, they haven't weaponized their food. They've turned it into an art form, a science, a reason for living." Blorp suggested, still sounding slightly dazed. "Exactly." Zyxnara's tentacles waved with renewed enthusiasm. "Think about it. A species that can create something like," she pointed at the remnants of their burrito experiment, "must be far more advanced than we ever gave them credit for. The flavors, the textures, the way they combine seemingly incompatible elements into a harmonious whole. It's a metaphor for their entire civilization." Blorp, who was starting to regain his normal coloration, looked skeptical. "A metaphor, Doctor? Isn't that a bit of a stretch?" Zyxnara waved off Blorp's skepticism with a sauce-covered tentacle. "A stretch? My dear Blorp, have you learned nothing from this experience? We must think outside the containment field." She began pacing the lab, her mind racing faster than a quantum computer on hyperdrive. "Consider the implications. A species capable of creating such a complex, multifaceted culinary experience must possess an extraordinary capacity for innovation, adaptation, and creativity. The burrito isn't just food," repeated Blorp. "It's a testament to humanity's ability to take disparate elements and combine them into something greater than the sum of its parts." Blorp, still trying to shake off the last effects of their experimental meal, bobbed uncertainly. "But Doctor, what about our original hypothesis, the biological weapon theory?" Zyxnara let out a laugh that would send shivers down a human's spine. Had there been humans present to hear it? "Oh, Blorp, how narrow-minded we were. We assumed that because humans could consume something so intense, it must be for defensive purposes. But now I see the truth. It's not about defense at all. It's about pleasure, experience, pushing the boundaries of what's possible." She whirled around, fixing Blorp with a manic gaze. "Don't you see? Humans aren't just surviving on their polluted little planet. They're thriving, and they're doing it by turning every aspect of their existence into an art form, even their sustenance." Blorp's eye stalks quivered with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "So, what does this mean for our mission, Doctor? For our understanding of human civilization?" Zyxnara's grin widened to truly alarming proportions. "It means, my dear Blorp, that we've been going about this all wrong. We've been studying humans as if they were just another primitive species on the verge of interstellar contact. But now I see that there's so much more. They're artists, visionaries, culinary geniuses." She began tapping furiously on her datapad, her tentacles flying across the holographic interface. "We need to completely revise our approach. Forget biology and technology. The key to understanding humanity lies in their culture, their creativity, their inexplicable ability to find joy and meaning in the most unlikely places." Blorp, caught up in his superior's enthusiasm despite his reservations, bounced excitedly. "So what's our next step, Doctor? More food experiments?" Zyxnara paused, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Oh no, my dear Blorp. We're going to do something much, much bigger." She turned to the main view screen, bringing up an image of Earth. "We're going to recommend to the Galactic Council that Earth be immediately classified as a protected cultural preserve." Blorp's gelatinous form quivered in shock. "A cultural preserve? But Doctor, that would mean—" "Exactly," Zyxnara exclaimed. "No interference, no contact, no probing." She glanced guiltily at a nearby shelf of rectal probes. "Well, maybe we'll keep a few of those, for old time's sake. But why, Doctor? Surely we should be sharing this discovery with humanity, helping them reach their full potential. Zyxnara shook her head solemnly. Ah, Blorb, so young, so naive. Don't you see? Humanity is already reaching its full potential, in its own unique, chaotic, delicious way. If we interfere now, we risk disrupting the very thing that makes them special. She gestured grandly at the remnants of their burrito experiment. Imagine a galaxy where every species eats nutrient paste and energy pellets. Dull, efficient, utterly devoid of joy. Now imagine a galaxy where the concept of a burrito exists, where a simple meal can be a work of art, and a religious experience all rolled into one tortilla-like wrap. Which galaxy would you rather live in? Blork considered this for a moment, then nodded his entire body in agreement. I see your point, Doctor. But won't the Galactic Council think we're crazy, declaring an entire planet off limits because of a spicy sandwich? Zyxnara's laugh echoed through the lab once more. Oh, Blorp, when has the Galactic Council ever understood true genius? Besides, she added with a mischievous twinkle in her 3 eyes, who says we have to tell them the whole truth? She began dictating her report, her voice taking on an official tone. Attention, Galactic Council. After extensive research, we have concluded that the planet Earth must be immediately classified as a protected cultural preserve. The native species, known as humans, possess a unique and invaluable cultural attribute that must be allowed to develop without outside interference. Blorp listened in awe as Zyxnara spun a tale of human culinary prowess that made it sound like the fate of the entire galaxy hinged on the continued production of guacamole and hot sauce. And in conclusion, Zyxnara finished with a flourish. It is our professional opinion that humanity's cuisine represents a cultural and artistic achievement unparalleled in the known universe. Any interference with their development could result in the loss of potential gastronomic wonders that could revolutionize life as we know it. We recommend a policy of strict non-interference, allowing humanity to continue its culinary evolution undisturbed. The future of flavor depends on it. As she sent off the report, Zyxnara turned to Blorp with a satisfied smirk. And now, my faithful assistant, we wait. And perhaps, she glanced at the mess of ingredients scattered around the lab, we conduct a few more experiments, purely for the sake of thorough research, of course. Blorp, recognizing the glint in his superior's eyes, sighed resignedly. I'll prepare the biocontainment unit and alert the medical team to stand by. Again, as Zyxnara dove back into her culinary chaos with renewed vigor, Blorp couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement. After all, how many xenobiologists could say they'd saved an entire planet from invasion armed with nothing but a spicy sandwich and a wild imagination? Somewhere on Earth, blissfully unaware of the interstellar drama unfolding above them, a human took another bite of their burrito. And in that moment, though they didn't know it, they were the most influential being in the galaxy. The stars watched in silent amusement as the fate of Earth was decided not by weapons or technology, but by the simple, profound art of mixing flavors in a tortilla. It was, perhaps, the most human victory imaginable. And as for Zyxnara and Blorp, well, let's just say that the Curiosity's folly quickly gained a reputation for hosting the best dinner parties this side of the Andromeda Galaxy. After all, when you've tasted the heights of human cuisine, those standard issue nutrient pellets just don't cut it anymore. In the end, it turned out that the true biological weapon wasn't the burrito itself, but rather humanity's uncanny ability to turn even the simplest meal into a universe-altering experience. And really, isn't that the most delicious victory of all?